Hey everyone, my name is David Rao and I'm the music teacher who blogs at makemomentsmatter.org. You can also find my ideas on Facebook, on Pinterest, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and a variety of other places when you search for my name, David Rao, or Make Moments Matter. So tonight I'm going to be talking about Family Folk Dance Night, how I've pulled this off at my current school, at my previous school, how I've done this, and I'm going to talk through the songs we use, the process, how I teach it, all of that sort of stuff, along with any questions that y'all have. And I, in fact, posted something on my Facebook page today asking, hey, what are your questions about Family Folk Dance Night? So I'm going to try and get to those at the end. But if anywhere along the way you have a question, please drop that in the comments and I will try and answer it. If it's about what I'm talking about right away, I'll talk about it then. Or if it's something just generally about Family Folk Dance Night, feel free to add that as well. And I'll just try and answer that towards the end. So when I really jump into that, just a couple quick things. If you hear me talk about a book or resource or something that you really like, I have a whole page on my blog dedicated to those resources. You can click my blog, makemomentsmatter.org, and do the video drop-down tab, or wherever you're watching, listening to this video, there should be a link at the bottom of the caption for the video, so you can just go straight there. Okay, before I jump into Family Folk Dance Night, I found a book this week that I wanted to share with you. It's published this year, so it's brand new. You're not going to find it on the discount book websites, most likely, and you're probably also not going to find it, at half-price books or whatever just yet. But it's totally great, totally worth checking out. Looking into seeing if your library has it, or encouraging them to get a copy or to get it for yourself for your own classroom library. It's this book called "The Girl Who Heard the Music." It is. And then the subtitle is How One Pianist and 85,000 Bottles and Cans Brought New Hope to an Island. It is written by Marnie Fogelson with Mahani Teva, and the pictures are by Marta Alvarez Miguenes. So it's a super cool book. Let me just read through just a little part of it. Okay. The Girl Who Heard the Music. On Rapa Nui, a small island that is watched over by giant statues called moa, I think I'm pronouncing that wrong, but I'll have to check that out before I read it with students, it seemed to a little girl named Mahani that music was everywhere. From the lullabies that mothers sang, to the rhythm of the waves hitting the rocks, to the crickets calling to each other at dusk, music was the heart, the Ananya of Rapa Nui. Sometimes visitors to Rapa Nui gave the children music lessons. Classical music sounded different from the ukuleles and songs Mahani knew. She fell in love with the way it made her feel, and her fingers itched to play the instruments she heard. When those visitors left, they also took their instruments and the rest of their knowledge. Every time Mahani had to say goodbye, her heart drooped like the tipani flower past its prime. When Mahani was 9, a retired music teacher arrived to Rapa Nui with a piano. A real piano. It was the only piano in all of Rapa Nui, and Mahani pleaded for the chance to learn. In the teacher's living room, Mahani practiced the notes until one day, click. Mahani looked at the sheets of music before her and realized she could read it all, each and every note. So I won't go through and read all of it. The music teacher leaves. It's sad. A great pianist, a Chilean pianist, came and visited the island, knew that she needed to learn more. She went out and got lessons. She studied all around the world. She played concert halls around the world. But whenever she'd come home, it was a beautiful homecoming, but there just wasn't a place for, there was all these tourists. It wasn't really a place for her to play piano. And then there was also a problem that there was trash all over. There was all this garbage, all these things in the ocean around the island. So then this part, one day while watching the light from the setting sun kiss the moa's magnificent faces, Mahani thought about how much work it had taken to carve the statues long ago with rock tools called toki. Carving a new future for the island would take a lot of work too, but she would help. And so then she wanted to build the island's first music school. Look at these beautiful illustrations. So they wanted to use the trash that was polluting the island. They wanted to help build with it. So they got volunteers from all around the world, and they used all this recycled cardboard, aluminum cans, glass bottles, plastic bottles, 7 years of garbage, and they built the school with all those recycled things. And then now they finally have this beautiful school, but it's built with all these cool recycled materials. And I love this too. Although Rapa Nui School of Music and Arts was made with tons of trash, it's powered by nature. Solar panels turn energy from the sun into electricity, and giant barrels hold rainwater for gardens. And they have piano, and they teach ukulele, and they teach cello, and all these cool things. And they teach the traditional ori and hoko, so the songs and the steps, the dances. From the island, they actually get to grow all the things. They grow their own food. It's just really cool school. And then it sort of brings together this idea of her making music, playing music, blending the Western with the traditions from her island, and it's just this really cool story. Anyway, super cool book, brand new book, totally worth checking out. Like I said, if you have access to it and want to get it for your own classroom, you totally can. I put a link to the listing on my links page, but you could also check and see if your library will buy you a copy. It's a super beautiful book and a cool book, highlighting Polynesian culture and also highlighting this amazing artist and musician and recycling. I mean, like, if you're like, who could get us this book? Well, maybe the STEM teacher, because they're talking about using recycled materials. Or who could get us this book? Ooh, well, maybe it's, about recycling and about Earth Day, and like, what a great book to have for Earth Day. Oh, wait, this book is so cool. Well, maybe it's, talking about cross-curricular. I mean, like, there's so many ways to say, like, this book is so valuable. So all these different, like, parts of, our world, you could be like, hey, worth getting us this book. Anyway, so it's a super cool book, totally worth checking out. All right, well, let's talk about Family Folk Dance Night. Y'all have asked some really great questions. I want to get to those in just a minute, but I'm going to tell you sort of how I've done it, both at this school and in past years, sort of how my prep work works for that, and then I'll try and jump into questions that y'all have about the actual night. So why do a Family Folk Dance Night? Well, for me, it sort of fits in place of a grade level program. So instead of doing like a stand and sing on risers or a musical or something like that, this is another musical experience that my students can have and really sort of engage with their parents. And so instead of like a parent-kid dance, whatever, with like a DJ or whatever, this is a chance for them to come and dance, traditional dances from around the world, to dance a sort of a different way. The kids get to teach their parents. It's super fun and interactive. And so for me, it's this great musical moment where parents are very, very involved. They get to dance with their kids. They get to see what their kids are doing. They get to be a part of that. And it's just this super fun, magical experience. And I'll tell you that every time I have planned it, I have always been so stressed going into the night, like the first time at a new school, because I'm like, are they going to buy into it? Are they going to enjoy it? I don't know. Are the teachers, like the homeroom teachers, what are they going to think? Like, I don't know. I would always get stressed about it. And then the night happens and parents see it and love it and are a part of it. And I just get such great feedback from parents and great feedback from our school community. And so I feel like it's something I want to do every year. And so that's now I do that, and it replaces my third grade performance for the year. So it could be done at a bunch of different grades. I just happen to do it with third grade because that's what fits well at my school. And one of the other things is that the third grade team at my school has had this tradition of every year they do this big research project that is a part of their ELA studies and their social studies and science and whatever, where each kid researches a different country or researches a country that maybe they're where they have an ancestry or they have a connection to, and they research that country, and then they have this thing called International Festival where they present about each country, and they wear traditional clothes from that country, and they have typical foods from that country. And so to have an experience like a folk dance night or a musical experience where you get to experience songs, dances, and traditions from that country just fits really well. So that's why I chose third grade, although you could totally do it with fourth grade if you wanted. So for me, figuring out these songs, because I knew there's an international tilt to this, even to this day, I then went and intentionally chose songs, none of which were from the United States. So there are so many songs that you could do that are different from the ones that I chose that you could do, but mine are all like international. None of them are American, but you could totally do several other American songs, and there were some really, really great ones that you could do. But on mine, I did not choose those just because I tried to go with an international tilt. So when I'm choosing the songs, I tried to choose songs dances where I wanted like a circle dance. I wanted sort of a line dance. I wanted, if I could do like a square dance, I wanted a mixer dance. I mean, I wanted to have some variety with what we did, so parents aren't like, well, we've been in this line for 3 songs. Like, I wanted them to feel some variety and try some different things. And when I went looking for songs, the 2 places that I went, and these are the resources I would suggest. The 2 places I went looking were this book, a book by Phyllis Weichert called Teaching Movement and Dance, and I'll come back to that in a second. And then all of these books, these are the books by the New England Dancing Masters. There are a bunch of them. There's Sashay the Donut, Down in the Valley, Chimes of Dunkirk, Listen to the Mockingbird, and Rise, Sally, Rise, I think is the last one. I don't know why I don't have it here. Whatever Jump Jim Joe got turned into, because it used to be called Jump Jim Joe, and they've changed that since they realized that song's problematic. I think it's called Rise, Sally, Rise now. Anyway, they're really, really wonderful books. These are super duper accessible, easy to use, easy if you're like, I don't know, I want to teach folk dance, but I don't know if I can understand the steps very well. They just are so easy to follow. The explanations make so much sense. A lot of times they have pictures. I think they also have DVDs that you can buy where you can see people dancing them. But the books are just so fantastic. You can get accompanying CDs if you're like, well, what music do I use? They have music that you can get. There is a book that they have, this one called Alabama Gal. Now, if you really want to invest in New England Dancing Masters, I would not suggest you buy this one, because this one is the greatest hits. It pulls 9 of their best songs, their best dances, puts them in one book, and so then you can buy just this book. But if you buy their other ones, you don't need this one because these are included in their other books. So this is if you're I just want one to start and maybe I'm not going to buy anything else. Well, then you could buy this one because it's their 9 best. But if you're no, I'm gonna slowly work and get all of them, then just get the gray books, because the other one is it's the 9 best of, but it doesn't make sense to buy this one, the best of. Oh, sorry, I don't know my keys. It doesn't make sense to buy the best of if you're gonna buy the gray ones, if that makes sense. So anyway, but all these resources are all great. It's amazing stuff. Totally check that out. The other book that has been very, very helpful and has just so many dances in it is this one, Teaching Movement and Dance by Phyllis Weichert. Phyllis Weichert is just a pillar in the dance community in the United States. She, while she was alive, did so much work, and her effect has been felt across the United States. The one thing I would say, though, is if you don't read Phyllis Weichert, you won't understand Phyllis Weichert. She has a very, very specific way of explaining folk dances, and how to do them. And she has her own little shorthand. It takes a little bit of getting used to be able to read and process through the steps. But once you understand her system, it makes a lot of sense, and the whole book is very accessible. It just takes a little bit of a learning curve to figure out what does this picture mean. But she had just such a brain for dance and a brain for teaching it to kids and to teachers that once you get into it, you're yeah, this is great. And the resource itself is fantastic. If you're just getting started, you've done nothing at all, the New England Dancing Masters, even if you have done, the New England Dancing Masters is a great resource. So I would say maybe start here, and then if you want the big compendium book, get this one too. This one I think new is $100 because it's big. I mean, it's 400 pages and tons of songs. The New England Dancing Masters books are maybe $20 or $30, and they're, like I said, they're all very good. They're good for different reasons. But this is one that maybe you want to put on your wish list, or look for when teachers are doing their teacher garage sale or whatever online. You can look for this. This is a great resource. But if you want to buy it new and you have funds through your school or whatever, go for it. But there are a couple different editions of this one. They're all pretty much the same, so you can get an older copy and not feel bad about that. If you're I want to get it, but it's a lot of money, totally get that. You could buy this one from a music teacher garage sales, a Facebook group that does that. Okay, so the songs that I chose were all sort of international, but I think depending on what you want to do, you could choose a song for different reasons. You probably want to choose based on the grade level you're going to teach, the difficulty, how you want to use it, to help sort of make it right for your school. So for me, I've done this a couple different ways. At one school, I did it where like we demoed 2 or 3 dances, and then we pulled parents out and danced 4 or 5 dances with them, or 3 or 4 dances, something like that. So like a sort of format where like we show you a couple, and then we do many with you. So like the show you a couple is like, these are some more complex dance steps or like trickier or whatever, or we just want to show off, where you do 2 or 3, and then the ones where you do it with the parents. This year, I just did all of them with the parents. They danced all the dances with us. And so you could do it either way, but if there's a dance where you're like, well, this is a super cool dance and I really want to show it off, but it's a little tricky, it'd be pretty hard to learn in the moment, then maybe do the thing where like you show off a couple and then you dance the rest with parents. It's sort of up to you with how you want to do that. But those are the 2 sort of ways I've done a concert like this. And I'll say that both work fine. It just depends on the content you want to show, how quickly you think parents could pick it up. The thing that as I was planning out this dance night, I was like, I want to choose dances that, yes, are on grade level for my students, but would be pretty easy for parents to pick up and just run with and learn in the moment if we wanted. Because I didn't want to like take too much time out to teach them as we went through the process. And I'll talk about that in just a second. So as I taught these, I taught them... I knew I was going to do this, so I sort of taught them through the year. And one of the things that I tried to think of was, I tried to think of a couple dances where like we could do them in the fall and I could like bring them back. So I'm not teaching just like, 8 weeks of dance all at once. So I try to teach a couple things in the fall and then teach several more in the spring leading up to the concert, and then just like remind kids, oh yeah, these other ones we've already done, and sort of bring that back. But then I didn't have to like spend a whole... if that makes sense. I didn't have to spend as much of a time right up before the event teaching new content. There were some things that I already taught before. So I like to be able to plan that out and schedule that out so it's not so much all at once. So that's sort of the long-term planning. Each class with this grade level, I had 4 homerooms in this grade level. So each one, they all learned all the songs. They all did that going into the weeks leading up to the show. So like they knew all the songs and all the dances before parents ever showed up. And then parents, they learned them that night. And I'll talk about that in just a second. The week leading up to the event, I had all the kids in the gym, all the kids in that grade level. And so the way I sort of planned it was on day 1, I can show you a picture too. So we have a nice sized gym, and I just sort of sectioned it off. So like big quarters of the gym, each class had their own. And on the first day, we just ran through everything at least once. So like every dance we would go through, we did it. And each class, like they had done these dances on their own in the music room, but it's a different thing to like do it in a new space. So each one had their own like quadrant, and they stayed in that quadrant and they just danced with their own homeroom. But it was weird seeing other kids dance and hearing the music from a different place or whatever, and hearing me calling out the moves in a different way. So that first day was just like, do it with your class, do it 2 or 3 times for each dance if possible, talk through if we need to make changes or whatever. The second day, I switched things up a little bit. And so they knew going into this, like, you're going to get your parents, you're going to teach them how to do everything. So on the second day, if there was like a partner dance or something, I would say like, find a partner from another class. And so they, a couple times we would switch things up just a little bit so that they got a different experience, and they would dance with someone who they're not as familiar dancing with. And that changed things up just a little bit. Or like there was a dance, it was a circle dance. We did one called the Galopede, and that's from one of these books. Or sorry, not the Galopede, that's the long way set dance. The Georgica Kolo is the one we did. And it was a big circle dance, and instead of doing like separate circles for each class, we like did it as one huge grade level circle. So again, it was like still getting practice at what we're doing, still thinking about how you would teach this, talking with parents, but it was a different perspective. So they got a different view of it, and it sort of prepared them in a different way for what it might look like. The next day, the day before, so day 3 of practice, instead of, there was one song where there was like a long ways set. So like 2 partners looking with an alley in the middle. And instead of saying like, I said, well, what if we have so many people show up that it's too big to do just one alley for your class? What if I took 3 or 4 duets of kids and I moved them over and made another line? And so I played around with that, and we did that, and we practiced that. What would it look like if you got separated and you got moved in with other kids from another class? Just again to like give them that experience before it happens on the night of the show. So moving them over and trying new things, mixing things up even more. And then another day, instead of doing one big circle, what if we did concentric circles, a big circle and then a smaller circle in the middle? How are we going to find our spots that way? And so just sort of talking through all the processes of like how this could happen, what might happen, but every day giving them a chance to run through that dance, just maybe with a slightly different variation or different change. Some of the things I anticipated would be, instead of one long way set per class, maybe 1.5, or having an overflow area. Or instead of doing one big circle, several concentric circles, because we're going to have a lot of people out there dancing. So like how I'm thinking, like, how am I going to do the space for this? How am I going to arrange? And what I did for this night for seating was we have like 3 rows of built-in bleachers, and then we have a lot of benches that normally we put in, in like an audience formation, right? Well, instead of doing that, I just lined the gym with these benches. So if you're sitting at the very edge of the room and looking in, and then all the activity happened in the middle of the gym. And that worked pretty well. I think if I were going to do it slightly different, I could open up the stage. I had the wall of the stage closed. I could open up the stage and have more seating up on the stage if I needed. I just didn't need it this year. And then the day of the show, we performed for the school, and then we performed in the evening with parents, and parents danced all the dances. Let's talk about how that worked. So kids came in all my emails out to parents and all my communications, I kept saying, like, bring your dancing shoes, plan on coming out and dancing. I remember even hear like a couple parents the night of like, are they really going to make us dance? And I was like, yes, we are, for sure are. So I didn't like push anybody or pressure anyone, but I said to kids, I kept front loading them with like, you're going to go grab your parents and you're going to dance the dance with them. And I kept saying to kids, like, well, maybe you're one time you're going to dance with this person. The next time you're going to dance with someone else. So maybe mom will dance with you one night or for one dance, and dad will dance with you another. Maybe your older sister will come out. And I had a whole mix of how that worked on the night of the show. I let the families decide how much interactivity they wanted. So in some cases, I would say like, if you want to sit out, you totally can. If you want grandma to come and dance, or you want so there were some cases where like there'd be a kid dancing with their mom, and then right next to them was like grandpa and an older sister. Or maybe another family, there were like there was the kid in the 3rd grade, and they danced with dad, and then mom came out holding the hands of a kindergartner or whatever. So I never was like, it can only be just the one kid and one parent. Like, I never said anything like that. I love when parents bring out other family members and they just make it work. So for some dances where you don't need a partner, that's super easy to do if it's like a big circle dance. But if you do need a partner, most of the time the families just figured that out. They figured out like, okay, well, you go dance this one, I'm going to sit out, or I'll take usually it wasn't like I'll sit out. Usually it was like, you go dance and I will take a video. Like, that's what a lot of the families happen to do. But it's sort of however the family wanted to work that out. I let them decide that on the night of. So first for these dances, like I said, a lot of it was very simple dances. So for one dance, the Galopede, it was a long way set. And basically I just walked them through, and the kid was like, I know all the moves, so I'll show you. But the song is so repetitive, like it repeats like 12 times the rotation of moves, that like by the time they're done, even if they're stumbling through the first set, like I don't need to give you a lot of instructions. You're an adult. Because I call out all the moves through the dance anyway, but like the first time before we ever dance with music, I like walked them through like, okay, in, bow, back, and stop. Great. That's the first thing. The next thing you're going to do, you're going to walk across and take. So like the kids already know the dance. So they like, I prepped them out the days before. I was like, okay, if your parent says, what is a do-si-do? You go ahead and you step in and you teach them. Or if they're like walking, they're confused, you show them where to go. So like there was even a time where in the days leading up in our preparation, our like practice time, where I said, okay, you're with partners right now. rock, paper, scissors to decide who goes first, but I want one person to be the kid who's explaining, and I want the other kid to pretend like they have never done this dance ever in their life, and you got to show them everything to do. So they had practice of like, what would you say to the person if the person's like, what's swing your partner, or what does it mean, right hand turn or whatever. So kids had practiced that, and the night of, parents, I mean, it's third grade dances, so they can't get too far off course, but the kid would lead them back and lead them through no matter what the dance was. There are a couple times where I said, ooh, this next move is called a do-si-do. Okay, kids, you get 30 seconds to explain to the parent what a do-si-do is. And we had practiced this. In our practice the week of the concert, I'd say like, okay, tell the other kid in the other side, what is a do-si-do? Show them, walk them through it. How are you going to do it? And so they had done that, and they did it with parents, and it worked like just super well. There were so many moments like even where, like I remember one time I said, this next part's really easy. And one parent goes, you're lying. Because they knew, like I was like 3 or 4 dances in, and they knew, they were like, oh, he's going to make us do it. We're going to have to turn around, or so. I don't know what even the dance move was, but there was so much laughter. It was so much fun. If parents were ever confused, by the end of the song, they got it. Because again, like, these songs are so repetitive. You're going to do these actions multiple times in a row. So if they ever felt unsure in like the first 10 seconds, their kid pulled their hand and led them through, or they were able to observe. No, there was no one who was like, this was too confusing, I just couldn't do it. Like every family walked away smiling. They had never done anything sort of like this. So it was just sort of a cool, different experience for them to be able to interact and dance and play with their kid in a way that they don't get to do on a normal day-to-day basis. So it was just a super fun night. Lots of laughs, lots of like stumbling, laughing, seeing that other people are doing the same thing. Parents didn't worry about how they looked because they were out there with their kid, and their kid was doing it, and their kids were wearing like traditional clothes from their like research day. So there's some kid out in lederhosen trying to help us dad. It was so much fun and so hilarious. So totally worth it. Totally check it out. Totally try it on your own. Let's answer some of your questions from today that y'all left on my Facebook page. Okay, let's see. How do you accommodate family members who have limited mobility? That's another moment where I let parents and kids decide what they're comfortable doing. All along the way, if there's a more complicated dance move, I show them the simple version first, and then I say, if you want to be fancy, or if you want to do something a little extra, there's this other thing you can do. But you can totally do the original move. Like, for any of the dances, we talk through that. So for parents or family members who have limited mobility, they already, I think, are used to modifying things for themselves in their daily life, because that's just the way life is. If you have a physical impairment or a reason to move a little differently, so they're used to modifying, and I never pressure like, you must do this in time, so kids know they can modify, and we just sort of, depending on what it is, we make changes as needed. If there's a really, really big thing that needs like maybe more attention, like maybe someone needs more wheelchair access or needs more movement or room, we are quick to just help move, give them space as needed, and kids or parents. I've had that same thing happen with kids or parents. Someone said, do they know that kids know the dance ahead of time? Is it taught first and the dance are just called? So yeah, the kids know the dances. That's why when their parents don't know anything, they're able to sort of explain easily as we go. And I call it on the night of. So like as we're dancing, I say, now do-si-do, and here we go. Okay, down through the alley or whatever it is. I call it out as we go for the most part, at least through, some dances it's like it repeats 12 times. Well, I'll call it out maybe the first 6 or 7, and then I just see if they can figure it out. By that time, usually they can. Someone said, I'm a first-year teacher, so I'd love to know where to find good resources on teaching folk dances, song recordings, dance instructions, video examples. So again, like I said earlier in the video, if you're newer, I would recommend the New England Dancing Masters books, and they do come with music, and you can buy DVDs. I could say like, oh, you could try and go find them for free online and try and find some videos. And yeah, you can piecemeal things here and there. But if you want a really comprehensive, really, really great resource, it's worth investing in one of these. And if you would just invest in one, I would say probably Chimes of Dunkirk is my favorite. I use this a ton, and also Sashay the Donut. I would say those are the two that I would do maybe first, but it's sort of up to you as to what you might do. Let's see. Okay, let's see. Do you do the same dances every year or all new every year or a mix of old and new? I have found some that I like to do over and over, and so I do that. I've done several a couple years in a row, but I get bored if I do the exact same thing, so I like to change it up a little bit. The only thing that hinders me is that because this is like International Folk Dance Night, because of my school's focus on International Festival for this special day, I'm a little bit limited in what I can do. And so I can't, like pull from like American dance. I mean, I could do one or two if I wanted to. But I really try to not do two songs from the same country, and I try not to be Eurocentric. So I'm trying to like pull dances from different cultures around the world, especially. I'm definitely looking for more from Asia. So if y'all have great examples, I would love that. But I try and find different things. So that's a little bit tricky if you're trying to find certain content. But I find a core set that I really like, and then I modify here and there. So example of one of those things. Last year, there's a dance tradition called Bhangra. And if you're familiar with like Zumba is based on traditional dance. That's more like Latin dance. And so Zumba has become like the sort of craze where a lot of people use it for exercise or use it for fun or whatever. And it's basically like taking these traditional steps, but adding and modifying, changing it to make it more like exercise. Well, Bhangra is a type of dance from India, I think northern India, but I've not researched this for a long time. But Bhangra is... it started out as traditional dance specifically around, I think, a certain festival, and then it's grown and just become so popular that people around the world have sort of made it sort of like a new Zumba, where you can do it as exercise, you can do it as fun, you can do it in groups. And what we did last year was that was one of the songs that we demoed for parents. We didn't make them do it. We demoed it for parents. And so we learned like 12 to 16 different moves, and I let kids decide which ones they wanted to do, and we sort of put them into a little performance sort of a thing and just showed that to parents. So that's one that like we did last year but we didn't do this year, just because we didn't have like a performative element in this one. Like parents danced everything this year, but that was one that like worked really well and was different and cool and fun for kids to do. But yeah, it depends on what you want to do. If you want to do something new every year, if you want to do different things, but I would say find at least 4 or 5 that you like really, really love and see how those work. I also had planned more than I used because I wanted to think about like what would work well. I tried some things and was like, nope, we're not going to do that. Not a show. Nope, we're not, And so I tried out a bunch of things with kids and then pared down to what worked best. Bethany just asked, how long does the event typically last? Isn't there an ideal time length? I don't know if there's an ideal time length. I try and do about a half hour. For me, I think I did, I don't think I have it written down here. I think I did 5 or 6 dances, and some of them were very short and didn't need a lot of explanation. And there was one where like we did it one way and we changed it just a little bit and tried another way. So I wasn't taking lots and lots of teaching time, but I think when parents were out there, since they weren't just sitting and watching their kids, they were able to handle a little bit more time. So it was like, I think 30 to 40 minutes. It wasn't crazy. But I think you could do anywhere in there and parents would be pretty excited about it. Depending again on what you do and what grade level and all of that. Okay, a couple more. Let's see. A couple of tips on advertising so that families come. Well, this again was in place of like their grade level performance. So the expectation was like all kids are going to do it, right? So like that was like a part of it. But the more I kept emailing out and talking about like, we're so excited, it's going to be so much fun. You get to dance it with us, or it's, we're going to have a great time. I just tried to play up like how fun it was and how different it was. Oh my gosh, we had so much fun last year, and the kids just can't wait to show you the moves. And I just kept talking to kids about, I can't wait for you to show your parents and get your parents to do it. And I think part of the advertising was just hyping it up with kids and like getting them excited about teaching their parents to like then go home and be like, we gotta go, it's gonna be, so. But also, I sort of feel like if parents want to come or not want to come, like, this is not like there's nobody has lines. It's not a musical. It's, this is just like a fun experiential moment. So if parents don't end up coming, I'm sad about that for them. But like, do what you're comfortable with. Maybe they don't want to come and dance. Maybe they don't feel comfortable doing that. Maybe, like maybe there's just a conflict, whatever. But the more I think I can hype up like how much fun we're going to have. And I think the more times you do it, the more that families talk to other families and are like, oh my gosh, we had so much fun. They had Grandpa Dosey doing. It was hilarious. Like I think that the more you talk it up, the more you do it, the more parents are likely to come. Let's see. Someone was talking about if you wanted to adapt for people who maybe had limited mobility or just didn't want to dance or wanted to be part of it but didn't want to do the dance moves. Sherry on Facebook says that she used to have a box of rhythm instruments that people could play along with the dancing, or like ribbon streamers or things they could do on the side that's not like out there actively going but is like participating in part of it. Yeah. And I think that's super cool. There are other people who said like, I did it with a live band. That's amazing. I did it with CDs because I did not have a live band, but it again depends on what kind of songs you're doing. If you have the availability to do that, what grade level you're doing it with, if you want to manage extra things on the side. I mean, there's so many little things. It just depends on what you're most comfortable with. But I would say like just start simple with like, we're just going to dance. And then the more you want to build in and add more in, I think you totally can. Okay, so that's a bunch of y'all's questions. Like I said, if you have more, please leave them. I'll try and answer them as much as I can. And like I said, these resources I shared earlier are some of my favorite books to pull dances from. And again, it depends on what grade level you're going to do, how you're going to do that to make it all work. But it's totally worth trying. I would say to anybody who's like, I don't know. I was on the fence for a while. I did it one time. It was so much fun. I've even been in buildings where like my PE teacher is like, I'll teach some of these in PE, or we can do it together. We can team do it. It'll be so much fun. And the night of the show, my PE teacher came and like heard and helped explain. I've also done a thing where like I say to the other music teachers in my district, hey, I'm going to do a folk dance night. I would love if any of you would be willing to just show up and like guide people around if they need help with dance moves. And when I did that, I had several other music teachers show up who were like, I'm just here to dance. And they came and they were like, helped in, filled in. If there's ever a kid who didn't have a partner, they would jump in or whatever. And so that was so much fun too, to be able to dance with my colleagues. It was just such a blast. So if you're on the fence of like, I don't know, should I do this? Try it. Do it. It's so much fun. It is different. And so it's just so cool to see the community actually dancing and reacting together. Because we don't really ever get to do anything quite like this. So I hope this gave you some idea of what you could maybe do at your own school. As always, if you have questions, shoot me an email, ask me a question in the comments. I would love to try and answer more if I can, and encourage you to try this on your own. All right, everyone, thanks so much for coming along with me. I have one more Musical Mondays video next week, so I hope you'll come and join me for that. And I hope you have a great week teaching your kids. Bye, everyone.